The 18th day of Chodesh Shvat, and for our Chabura, this is a particularly exciting day. This is day 200 of our limud of Dirshu Amud Yomi. So shukach to everybody that has been learning with us, following along with us, and a big shukach for all of the tremendous Talmud Torah. We are learning Maseches Pesachim, Daf Kuf Aleph Amud Beis, but we are starting from a couple of lines up from the bottom, 3 lines from the bottom of Kuf Aleph Amud Aleph. We had previously discussed the machlokas between Rabbi Shmuel with regards to hearing Kiddush in Shul, asking the question of, are you Yotzi Yidei Kiddush, Yotzi Yidei Yayin? We saw machlokas between the two. But everybody agrees that when you get home, between Rabbi and Shmuel, everybody agrees that when you go home, you still have to make a Bari Pri Hagafen. And Rabbi Yochanan is going to challenge that with a third approach. 3 lines up from the bottom of Kuf Aleph Amud Aleph. V'amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says as follows: Af yidei yayin nami yatsu. You are also yatsu your mitzvah of yayin, meaning you also do not need to make another Bari Pri Hagafen when you get or Hagafen. Once you get home. Va'az Rabbi Yochanan atami. Rabbi Yochanan is consistent with his reasoning. The Amar Rabbi Chanin bar Abaye, Amar Rabbi Padas, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Chanin bar Abaye said in the name of Rabbi Padas, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Echad Shinu Yain, both for a change in wine, meaning a different bottle of wine, Vechad Shinu Mokum, or turning over to Kuf Aleph Amud Beis, if you change your place, Ein Tzarich Levarich, you do not need to make another bracha. Right? She says in Tzarich Levarich, Shni Ala Yain, you don't need to make another Bari Pri Hagafen. Says the Gemara, hold on a second. You're telling me that if I change places, I don't need to make another bracha? Meisive, we have a brisa that says differently. Shini makom tzarich levarich. If you change your place, you do need to make another bracha. Shini yayin, but if you change the bottle of wine, ain't tzarich levarich. You don't need to make another bracha. Meaning the barrel of wine, you don't need to make another bracha. Meaning we have a brisa mefurish that says against this. Says the Gemara, teyufta the Rabbi Yochanan teyufta. That is a solid refutation of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan's opinion is incorrect. And the Gemara then continues, say, Yosef Rav Idi bar Avin, Kamid Rav Chisda, Rav Idi bar Avin was sitting in front of Rav Chisda, Yosef Rav Chisda v'Kamar, and Rav Chisda was sitting in front of him. And he said as follows, Mishmei Rav Huna, in the name of Rav Huna. Hadarma, that which you said, Shini Makaim Tzarech Levarich, that if you change your place, you need to make another bracha. Lo Ishanu, they didn't teach that. Ela mibais v'bais. I mean, that the halacha is that mibais to bais, so makam lemakam loy. If you change from one house to another, that's where you do need to make another bracha. But mimakam lemakam, but from one place to another within the same room, within the same bais, you would not need to make another bracha. Amle Rav Idi bar Avin, says Rav Idi bar Avin, ha tininu lebe masnisa debei Rav Hinak. We learned this from the brisa of Rav Hinak's yeshiva. V'amri lebe masnisa debei Rav Hinak kavasich. And some say in Rav Hinak's yeshiva was taught like what you said. Says the Gemara, Ve'ela Rav Huna Masnisa Kamashalon. So Rav Huna is just coming to tell us what the brisa has already taught us. I mean, we know this. We know this from the brisa of Rav Hina. Amalei, Rav Huna says the Gemara, Rav Huna Masnisa Lashmira. He had never heard that brisa. Meaning in his curriculum when he was growing up, he never heard of that brisa, the brisa of Rav Hinak. Rav Hinak was not a very well-known Beis Medrash, one of the Tanaim, but was not. It was not really usually normatively well known. So he had never heard that. It's interesting to point out that the Rashbam thinks that this both the question and the answer is incorrect. Because that's not usually the style of the Gemara, meaning that was probably an addition that was added in later by the Gaonim, that the Gaonim asked that question, that maybe Rav Huna had never heard of this price of Rav Hina. Nevertheless, it says the Gemara, V'su, Yasser Rav Chisda v'Kamar Shmei Denafshe. And then, after Rav Chisda had taught this over, and we had said that we learned this in the price of Rav Hina, okay, Rav Chisda continued and taught over something from himself, meaning taught over the din, as he understood, that which you said, that if you change place, you need to make a bracha, new bracha. That's only true with things that don't require you to return to make the bracha achrona in the original place. The halacha is that if you eat a meal and then you get up and you go somewhere else, and you haven't benched yet, you have to come back. You have to bench. If you were eating mezonos and you left without making a bracha achrona, you have to come back to make the bracha achrona. Bar nefashos, you don't have to return to the original place to make, and that's what Rav Chisda is telling you. Is that when it comes to benching or alamichi or alagefen alaitz, that's when you would not need to make another bracha, because what are we talking about? Shinui makom, you left and then you had another bite to eat, but you have to come back to your original place in order to finish. So you haven't finished yet. Clearly you haven't finished yet, so your original bracha still covers you. But anything that would require a bracha afterwards in the original place, benching or you would not need to make another bracha if you changed location. My time, what's the reason? Says the Gemara, because he's going to come back to the original place. So even if he's changing places, he has in mind that I'm coming back. He's still part of the same meal, because he knows he has to come back to bench. It's assuming that he is coming back to bench and that he knows that. That's an important halacha to be aware of. Chazal insisted that when you are chayv to bench, that you come back to the original place, because l'chara, when you leave without benching, it's far more likely you're going to forget to bench. Rav Sheshes says, Rav Sheshes disagrees with Rav Chisda. He said both of these cases you would need to make another bracha. He disagrees with the whole fundamental premise. Anytime that you are leaving, even if it would be that you're planning on coming back, you would need to make another bracha. Basically, we have an objection to this. You have a group of people that were sitting down. Mesubim means that they were reclining, right? Haseba, but it means they were sitting at the meal, and they were having something to drink. And then they got up to go and see that there's a chasen and kala. They went right, so they got up and they went to a different room, or a different out into the street. To simchas kala. When they leave, they don't need to make a bracha retroactively. What does that mean? Retroactively, they don't need to make the bracha achrona, right? When they leave. And when they come back, they don't need to make another bracha before they continue eating. So there's a chasen and kala out in the street. You don't need to bench now and then go and get them. You go and say Mazel Tov. You could go and say Mazel Tov and then bench afterwards. And then when you come back inside, you don't need to make another shackle or governor, whatever it is. Says the Brisa B'med Dvar Murim. Where do we say this halacha? Because there's somebody that's old or sick that's there that couldn't go out. Meaning zaken achala, somebody that would be patur for the mitzvah of simchas chasen v'kala. In theory, if you left for something else, there, and we'll talk about that halacha l'maaseh in a moment, there would be no chiyuv. Meaning you shouldn't leave. You should bench first and then go. But if you're going out to do a mitzvah, so pause the meal or whatever you're doing, go out for simchas chasen v'kala and then come back. So long as there is somebody there, a zaken or a chayla, that is not chayv in the mitzvah. But if there's nobody left there, nobody old, nobody sick, when they go out to una bracha l'mafreya, before they leave, they have to say a bracha achrona. When they come back to una bracha l'chatchila, they would need to make another bracha, another shackle, another whatever. And since the Brisa indicates, this is the Gemara's question, since the Brisa indicates that they lifted up their feet, they got up, they walked out, it sounds like we're talking about a thing that you would need to come back to bench or to make a bracha achrona. That's what it sounds like. And the reason that they left the zaken achala, that's an important caveat, is when they leave. They don't need to bench. Meaning, this is talking about benching, and it is talking about alamichia, and it is talking about alagefen, and you see that there is a situation where they don't need to make a bracha achrona. They don't need to make a bracha. They don't need to bench yet. And when they come back into a bracha lechatchila, they don't need to make a bracha lechatchila. They don't need to make another bracha roshana. But if there was nobody left behind, meaning they went out to make simchas chasen v'kala, then they would need to. It has nothing to do with whether or not they're planning on coming back. I mean, they need to come back. The achal is that if they did it b'diavad, they would need to come back to bench. But if there's nobody left behind, it's got nothing to do with whether it's a bar nefashos or a alamichia. It's all dependent on whether or not somebody's left behind. When they go out, Tu'un bracha, they need a bracha lemafreya. After they ate, they need a bench. When they come back, tu'un bracha lechatchila, they need to make another bracha lechatchila, another bracha rishona. And this is a kasha l'Rav Chisda. This is a kasha l'Rav Chisda. And tomorrow, we're going to deal with the answer of Amar of Nachman Yitzchak. But to put into our context, this is the question of mincha gedola on a Shabbos. If you have an early mincha on a Shabbos, everybody comes home and they're having lunch, and then you look at your watch and go, oh, I need to get to shul for early mincha, but you haven't benched yet. But if everybody's going to now sit and bench, you're going to miss mincha. So there are people left at home. There's somebody who's sticking around at home. There's the wives are home, the kids are home, whatever. And a couple of guys are running out to make a mincha minyan. Do they need to bench before they go? They're leaving people behind there. Do they need to bench? Are they allowed to? Right? Is that a chiyuv like chassan and kala? Is that an option? Is that a mitzvah averis? Meaning chassan and kala is a mitzvah averis. Mincha is not necessarily mincha. Early mincha is not a mitzvah averis. It's not a mitzvah that's going to pass by. All of these questions come up, and Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, we will continue with this sugya and all of the important halachas and nafkaminas as we see with Rav Nachman Yitzchak Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach tomorrow. Hoping that everybody has a beautiful day, and we will see you then.